Wow. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's three parakim Rambam, Hilchos Shvisas Yom Tov parakim Dalid, Hey, and Vav, starting with the fourth chapter, starting with Perek Revi, which will speak about all different types of malachas that may not be done on Yom Tov. This chapter has 26 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph. Ein moitziin es ha'esh, that we may not ignite a fire. Whether you are igniting it or creating the fire from wood, stone, or from metal. For example, by rubbing them one to the other, or makin zubazu, or hitting one on the other in order for fire to come out. Now, let's not forget that anything that's done for food, right, is permitted to be done on Yom Tov. And the question is, why can we not create fire on Yom Tov? And as we'll see, we mentioned already that's only midrabanan, but that fits the general rule, which is that anything that could have been done before Yom Tov, midrabanan, even though it's for food, may not be done on Yom Tov. Or other ways that they used to create fire, and that is they would take some sort of combustible gas and they would shake it, and it would shake and just burst into flames. That may not be done. Or using the sun, having the sun reflect through a cup of water or different types of glass, and having the ray of the sun go directly on some sort of a flax, linen, or other material. In other words, all different means of creating fire. Why? Because only to use a fire that is already lit. But to create fire also. And why is that? Because you could have done it from before Yom Tov. And this is the general rule. Anything that could have been done before may not be done on. Halacha base. As we mentioned, I think it wasn't Perek Aleph, that when it comes to carrying and to fire, we may even pass on fire, not for food. Nevertheless, but to distinguish, to put out the fire, to extinguish, that may not be done even for the sake of food. Because the rule is that extinguishing fire is not needed for the food. The food is getting burned, take it off the fire. Very simple. Whether it is a fire, whether it is a candle, may not do so. Just like weaving or just like building, because we view extinguishing fire as an essential non-food related activity. Halacha 3. A person is not allowed to lift the opening of a lamp upward for it to be extinguished, which is direct cause of extinguishing. You cannot remove the oil from a lamp. Again, that's considered direct extinguishing. Another thing, you cannot cut the top of a wick with a utensil. This is a midrabanan. But you are allowed to flick the top of the wick to remove the charred portion, and that's going to have the fire burn better. When a bundle of what has been lit in a fire, right, the whole bundle is in the fire, but if you have a log that Bechlal did not catch fire yet, you are allowed to remove it. And this is not like removing oil from a lamp. Every log of wood is something distinct, and removing it is not considered this extinguishing. Halacha 4. You may not put out a fire to save your money on Yom Tov, just like you may not put out a fire, right, in a house if it's no danger of life. Got to go out.
What if it changes your? What if you're putting out the fire so that your house is not so warm? It changes your experience of Yom Tov.
No. The way that Ramah words it is even better. That Ramah says, oh, your house has to burn down. But if you won't have where to eat, that's something else. Then you're putting it out to have where to eat. You understand? It's much smarter because you're making it food related. I just want to say that in most cases, unless you're living way out there, that the distance between one house and the other is a lot. There is a danger. There's a danger to life because if one house, God forbid, burns down, aside of the tremendous money loss, who says it's not going to catch the neighboring house and then the neighboring house and then someone's life will be in danger? Okay. We may not put out a fire because of Tashma Shamita, because marital relations has to be done in the dark. So you may not put out the candle. You can turn a keli over it. But we're not speaking about turning over a keli where the oxygen is going to get sucked out. That's direct extinguishing. We're speaking about just, darkening the area, or build a mechitza between you and the candle, or take the candle out to another bias. Another bias means another room. But well, the bottom line is you may not extinguish, and then for Halacha 5. You are allowed to carry a lamp, the candle, while it's still burning. We're not afraid that it might be put out. But also, but you may not place a candle on a palm tree. Why? Because you might come to use an object that's still growing from the ground on Yontif, which is forbidden. Halacha 4. The whole chapter is filled with all different types of prohibitions. Halacha 4. You may not burn incense on Yom Tov. Why? Think about it. Because when you burn incense, you are also doing an act of mechabe. Why is that? Because when you place the incense on the coals, if you can see that in the eye of your mind, for a moment, the ketreidus itself will put out some of the coal. And even if you want to smell from it, doesn't make a difference. That if it's not for you to smell, that if the purpose is only to legameres habayis v'sakelim, to impart fragrance to the house, that's asur, because that's not soida chaguf. The chiddush is even for smelling yourself is also asur. But you are allowed to smoke produce in order for it to be more fit for eating, just like you're allowed to roast meat on fire, right? And don't forget, guys, when you put meat on fire, just want to make a detail. Some of the juices can drip on the coals and extinguish. That's different because there's no other way to roast without it. Another thing, you are allowed to sweeten mustard using a piece of metal. Again, because here you're not going to put anything else, but you cannot use a gechelos leich because you're being mechabe. Because you are, I want to add another detail, guys. So again, why are you allowed to do meat? Meat is also going to put out the coal because meat, like we learned yesterday, if you make the meat today, it's going to be fresher than making it yesterday. Problem with many issues here, like the coal, like the mustard, you should have done it before Yom Tov. So you can do it at Yom Tov, but that you're not going to put anything out, that's okay. Another thing, you're not allowed to put out the fire. So for the house not to be smoky. All right. And here again, the Ramah Shulchan Aruch says, Kevan, but if this is your place where to eat, and the smoke is not going to allow you to enjoy your meal, then use that as the head. Halacha Zayin. I'm going to add quick. I know it's late. We have a lot to learn. That theoretically, there are times that you can lower a fire. I know I always say don't do it because move the pot off the fire a little bit. But I'm saying if there's no other way for the food not to get ruined other than if it's l'tzoyrech oichel. Oh, it's all about because practically it's not going to be l'tzoyrech oichel. Okay, next. Halacha 7. You may not blow on a fire with bellows on a Yom Tov. Why? Because you're doing it uvda d'chol. That's the way professionals do it. But you could blow on it with a tool. I was making the fire bigger. Yakir is generally permitted because you need that. You may not make charcoal. You may not braid a wick. You may not singe them. You may not cut them into two. But what you could do is you are allowed to squeeze a wick until it becomes firmer by hand. You are allowed to soak it in oil. You are allowed to put You can have one lamp here, one big wick that's in the middle, and light it in the middle, and you're creating a keli, but that's okay. Halacha 8. You may not break earthenware. You may not cut a piece of paper in order to roast fish. Why? Because you could have done this before. Think about it. You may not break a reed, right? To use it as a spit to roast on it a salted piece of meat, or fish. Why? Here again, you could have done it from before. If a spit became bent, even though you can fix it using your own hands, which would be, let's say, an unusual way, not a professional way, still, you may not fix it. Tikkun keli. You're going to use it for food, you should have done it yesterday. If you have two utensils that have been attached from the time that they were originally made, like two neidos, like two lamps or two cups, it's forbidden to break them into two, because again, this is called tikkun keli. It's food utensils, shkoyach. Do it before Yom Tov. Halacha 9. You may not sharpen a knife with its sharpener, but with the shinu you could. You can wet it on a piece of wood, or on top of a shard, or on top of a stone. And even that says that Rambam, don't tell that to the public, because once people will see others sharpening their knives in an unusual way, they're going to come and sharpen it with a normal metal sharpener. The Rambam says, when you are able to use it, you know why you want to sharpen it? Because you want to use it with greater ease, right? Where it's only nicked. However, if ironic, you would think it's more the opposite. If you can't use it at all, then how does a shinui help? That's real tikkun keli. You made something usable. Or because then there's a greater chance, since it's completely not usable, you're going to use the metal. You might think it's permitted, or because you'll need it. It takes a lot longer with wood. Also, speaking about a sakan of shchita, because maybe the chacham is going to find that it has an ik, and the chacham is going to tell the sheikh, "Now let us check." This guy will think, "Whoa, if oichel nefesh," he's going to come and sharpen it with metal, with a proper sharpener. All right. I want to say b'mashcheses. Let me correct myself. I don't think it means with a metal sharpener. I was thinking I'm a shoichet. I was trained to use it with the stone, with the usual sharpener, Now a chacham shara sakin la'atzmai, and he's allowed to do that because he knows you're not allowed to sharpen it, and he discovers that his knife for shchita is good. Then he can give it to an amoritz. Halacha yud. Ein mevaken eitzim b'yantiv. You're not allowed to chop wood. Guys, not trees. We're not talking about trees. Of course, you can't chop trees. You know what? That's detaching off the ground. We're speaking about wood, and we learned so much yesterday about firewood. Wood that's already designated for firewood. Still, you're not allowed to chop it. Not with a kardum, not with a magel, not with a megadum. Only with a mamash ashinui. You take a kaifetz, you take a butcher's knife, and you use it with the sharp edge. Because then it's going to look like an axe. Why? You need the wood for firewood. The wood is not muksa, so you're going to make food. Or like we said, by havara, even because you should have done it from yesterday. Let's go on the opposite. You should never be allowed to chop wood. Should have done it yesterday. Because, no, you can't say that, because when people prepare fuel, it does happen that you prepare a log and you didn't know how dense the log is. You didn't know that. You couldn't have known that. And it's not chopping fire. And more than that, and then you're not going to end up making food. So they made you do it, bishinoi. These are the big rules. So the Rambam says finally in Halacha Yud that he gave you this chapter, first of all, many different cases, but the underlying reasons, understand them and apply them to all other cases. Like you have to put everything together. On one hand, if you won't be able to cook at all, we have to be matter some way. But don't be matter uvda the choil. Ayetz l'tzoyrech bishul, you could have done it yesterday. You have to know how to weigh all these things together. Halacha Yudal. A woman should not walk among piles of wood looking for a branch that's going to be good for roasting. Why is that? Because this branch was not designated that for the previous day. We said that wood is allowed to be used for firewood, yeah, but not for a spit, not for a keli. You may not support a pot or a door by a block of wood. That's the rule, lahasaka. If it's not lahasaka, you may not use it. Halacha yud beis. Now we already spoke so many times, beginning with the Gemara and other Rambams, that in the times of Chazal, they had stores like they have today stores, but they would have shutters that would close the store at night. And those shutters, when they were removed, were used as the trays or as the tabletops in which they would show off their schayra. The issue here is about binyan arai or binyan, taking it off, putting it on. You're doing it to show off the wares of herbs that people will come and buy. We're going to speak soon today a lot about buying on Yom Tov, how it's permitted with limits, because you need it for food. However, that the tzir, that the hinge was in the middle. But if the hinge was in the side, which means that when you put it back in, you are able to affix it permanently. And that's something that we are afraid you might do. And then you're going to be violating binyan. Okay. If it doesn't have a tzir at all, the best. In other words, the flimsier it is to put it in and out, the less problematic it is. Okay. Which is, you can say in the bias, why is it b'chlal needed? That's the point. I don't care if it's not needed. You're not offering people tavlin for the food on Yom Tov. You're not doing anything. Kalim she'em b'futzalim. If you have utensils that are made from detachable parts, like like a candelabra made from several parts, or a chair or a table that are made of chatichas, you are allowed to put it together on Yom Tov. Here again, Yakir, the same concept, as long as you don't put it together in a way where it becomes fixed. Now, have a kasha. Normally, if fixing it together would be a biblical violation of binyan, normally the chachamim would say, don't even do it in a non-fixed way. We don't say that over here. You know why? Lefisha ein binyan b'kelim. So therefore, it's like a gzeira l'gzeira, which is why you're allowed to do it. Avanim shel beis hakisei, muter letzadatom b'yom tov. We're speaking about stones, not that you're using as toilet paper, but stones that you used to sit on. And again, you're making some sort of binyan arai, because it's a binyan arai. Now, binyan arai is also midrabanan, because of the one's dignity. You know, you're sitting on some sort of chair. Then loy gazru. If you're making a fire on Yom Tov, when you're setting up the wood, this is going to be many examples of binyan milmayla lamata. God builds milmayla lamata. When you write letters and stam with sirtut, think about the letters. You're building it milmayla lamata. You're hanging the letters from the line on the roof. Unlike all other cultures, lahavdil, that they have the line on the bottom, because we're godlike. God builds milmayla lamata. We build milmata lamayla. So in many cases, the way you make the shino is doing something milmayla lamata. So if you're setting up a pyre, don't build it the way you normally build it, which is the way we know how to build things. You put it on the bottom and then you build on, because it looks like you're boina. Don't even do that. So what should you do? Just lock down the wood, or do a shinoi. What will be a shinoi? You have to have a few people involved. Let's say it's going to be a pyre of 5 layers of wood. So have a couple of people. Have the guy with the top one holding it on the top. Then someone else should put it on the bottom and go milmayla lamata. Similarly, if you're building something upon which to put a pot, normally you put the bottom, you put the base, and then you put the pot. Put the pot first. If you're building up a bed, all these things, guys, only helps because Yakir, what you're doing is called aray. So to begin with, it's only asur midrabanan. When you do that, bishinoi, it's mutter. Okay? Because something that's asur deoraisa, we said, shinoi also downgrades the isur, but it remains asur derabanan. We're not allowed to do an isur derabanan. Of course. And even eggs, if you want to stack up eggs in your fridge, so they would stack up eggs, they would put a layer in the bottom, a layer. You're not allowed to do that. Elo yishana, meaning the anything that looks like a binyan, even though it's a binyan aray, even though binyan aray is asur midrabanan only, so what? It's asur midrabanan that you resolve it through a shini. Halacha tezai. Masirin zemuvan haniklu mebehemo. You can remove fleas. Yakira, I need some joy over here. That attach themselves to the skin of the animal. Guys, you're not removing it with a comb. Removing it with a metal comb. That was the Gemara. That's going to be psikresha. That you're going to make a chabura. Here, you don't know. Remove it with your hands. Even though it could make a chabura. Next thing. You can't actually birth an animal. Birthing an animal would mean sticking your hands in the womb, schlepping the animal out. What you could do is you can be of help. Kate said, how can you be of help? You only hold the child in order for it not to fall on the ground, or blowing into its nose, or putting the dad of the mother into its mouth, or more. And it's a nature. It's a nature. Sometimes mothers reject the children in the animal kingdom right after they're born. And how do you get them to accept their animals? It's crazy. You afflict pain on the mother. What they would do is, so first of all, they would make the mother identify more with the child by putting from the mother on the child. Not one is, you take the shiliyasa, you put it on him. So when the mother sees the afterbirth, which was part of the mother's body, on the child, she feels more connected. And the litan bul melech, you put a block of salt inside the womb of the mother that causes tremendous pain to the mother. When the mother feels pain, it will have mercy on the child. That's the nature of the world. When people are in pain, they are able to also feel another person's pain. But that only works if the animal is an animal tohidam. An animal that's tameya has more achzarius, and a behemoth tameya will feel pain. But you know what happens when it feels pain? Something that's tamei, it feels nothing else. It doesn't care about it. It only feels its pain. That's one of the simonim. And we should know in ourselves. Many people have that from their animal soul, that when they are in pain, they cannot focus on anything. But they should know that their godly soul, when the godly soul feels pain, it feels pain on everyone else as well. One of the Tamei HaMitzvahs that the Rishonim give for Shiluach HaKain, you're taking the chiclets or the eggs even though you don't need it. Send away the mother, is because the mother calls out Gishrai. I heard that scream. And it causes pain to the Shekhinah. And once the Shekhinah is in pain, it also will have Rachmanas on God's children. Also, okay. It won't work. And since it won't work, you're not allowed to do it. Forget it. You're in Tzar Balachayim. Halacha Yud Zayin. Nothing like coffee. In Gashmis. Beruchnis, nothing like Torah. Torah is the best of Torah. Keli shenit maber of Yontif. So I guess Tikkun Keli is also right. Makabapatash also mitoiraisa. A non-discernible fixing is also midrabanan. What will be a non-discernible fixing? Something is tummy and you toivel it. Ein mabil meyamtiv. A keli for food. Yeah, you could have done it before. You would have left it. Why should I work on Erev Yom Tov when I can spend my whole Yom Tov in the Keilah mikveh, and then you have no Yom Tov? Now, water is the only food item. It's only a liquid that could be taken to the mikveh, right? You do hashaka. The aim we have to learn so much. So if I have water that I need to toivel, I can already put it in a cup that's tummy and chaparai. Another thing, a keli that's toilet truma. And what was the last chapter of Chagiga? That malus ois. In other words, the Chachamim says that even if something was toivel for truma, it's not good for kachim. You have to take it to the mikveh again. That could be done on Yom Tov because really it's taught. Mutalat biloy. That if it's really midoraisa tor, it's only a rabbinic, then you are allowed to do it on Yom Tov. Now it's different. If Keli became Tamei on Yom Tov, you couldn't have toiveled it before Yom Tov. It only became Tamei on Yom Tov. Madbil anoise be Yom Tov. Nitma Keli b'mashkin Tameim. Shein vlad tumam erev Yom Tov. And you guys, you have to chazer all of the dinim of Tuman Tara. And the Chachamim were the ones that said that mashkin becomes a rishon. Chila. Another thing they said is that a mashkin will be matame kelim, even though midoiraisa. The only thing that a rishon can make into a sheni midoiraisa is oichlin and mashkin, not adam and kelim. So the whole tumah is a tumah derabanan. So therefore, matfil and oisa beyamtiv, the fish of the menatoida, as we will learn. Another thing, umadla midli tamei shutar me'elav. Just like you can be make hashaka if you have a bucket, you can't take the bucket to the mikveh. But if you're going to take water, use this bucket, and it's going to go into the water. Nida she'ein lo begadim lahachlif. And again, begadim have to be taken to the mikveh. We don't do it nowadays. So she can travel with her begadim. Now, obviously, in a ba'oifen that it doesn't create a chatzitza, same concept. She's going for herself. Derech mamela, the clothing become tahoidim as well. Halacha yutas. New dinim. Varim Rambam asr b'yantiv mishum gezeres mekach homemkar. Mekach homemkar is asr midrabanan. The reason why it's asr midrabanan, Gemara says they're varied. The reason why the Rambam brings the shema yichtoiv. Okay, but now you can't do business. So, however, on the other hand, what happens if I run out of food? I ran out of food. So I will be allowed to go to the store and get food. But since you're not allowed to do transactions the way they are normally done, so now we will learn how they are allowed to be done on Yom Tov. Like if I need to get an animal, you're an animal merchant, we can't make up, this animal is $5,000. Can't say that. You know what we do? The seller takes two animals that are the same. He knows it's the same value. So I guess we'll know what type of animal I bought. I take animal A. After Yom Tov, we determine how much animal B is worth, and then I pay. Because you have the other animal. Many people buy an animal, give their part. Another thing, when two people or more are buying an animal, they should not say, I'm taking the value of a seller, you're taking a value of two. Means even amongst each other, don't mention a number amount. What you do say is a percent amount. I'm taking a third, I'm taking a fourth, that you could mention. I'm not a fourth, 20. When they also divide, me and you bought an animal. So forget about this. The seller didn't mention a price, but me and you are, let's say, half and half. So normally you would put it on weights. You may never put meat weighing it. That's too precise. And this thing of keeping away from weights on Yom Tov is even if you have rats in the house and you want to simply protect your meat, the rat shouldn't get it. So one option would be to put it upon the weight that's hanging from the ceiling. Even for that, you can't do. Why? Because another than Tabachuman, these professionals, they would hold it in their hand and they would know how much it weighs. You can't put it in his hand. It's going to be approximation. For also, another way they would know how much you're taking is you put meat into a cup of water, and from the displacement of water, from the quantity of water that's displaced, you know how much meat. Don't even do that. You may not cast lots of portions of meat. Interesting. Each one is getting a goydel. The only times you can do that is to cast lots in the Beis Hamikdash. You can't mention a number. And if you're buying anything, right, don't buy it or mention any specific measure or weight allocates to the oisa. You should tell to the Chemini, Malali Kalezeh. Now, what happens if it's a measuring utensil? I don't care. I feel like still that's not a problem. Don't mention. Halacha 22. The exception for measuring is when you are making food and you have to have spices, you need to have an exact amount, not approximate. That can be measured. But that's only a nachtoim. Don't measure. Everything should be by approximation. Measuring flour is something that's normally done when you're selling. Everything has to be exact. When you're doing it in your house, people are comfortable with it being approximate. It also looks like you're measuring it to sell. The one exception is eggs and nuts. Everyone mentions a number. It's not a problem. I need a dozen eggs. Only thing is, you can't mention damim. All right. You can't say, yeah, that's going to be $20. And you can't even mention a schum minyan. Now, what does that mean? You cannot mention the sum of the account. Sum of the account means if I already took 10 eggs yesterday, and now I'm going and I can mention eggs. By eggs, I can mention a number because people need that amount. No one does by approximation. But the Chenveni cannot remind me, okay, yesterday 10 and now 10, 20. No, that he can't say. He already owed 10 Rimoinim or 10 Agoizim. So the din is lo Yomer Lebi Yomtiv. Give me 10, now I'll owe you 20. Don't add it to another number. And ulamachar oisei cheshbon. Halacha chav daled hoy lechad meitzal chavani yoroi harogel etzloi. Eitzel apatam harogel etzloi v'lekech mamenu behemus v'efes kol ma sheyirtzeh. Okay, what's important is, my friends, we're speaking about a Jewish chendani, a Jewish roya, that we know that they didn't harvest it on Yom Tiv. You can get anything. Very good. Another din, halvas Yom Tiv. You can take, we're not speaking about a loan of money. No one is going to loan money, but food was lent. You can go take him to the din on Yom Tiv. Why is that? Don't forget, guys, the moment there are restrictions, you don't mention anything. If a person will know that anything that I lent on Yom Tiv is something that I cannot go back to a din Torah, yakir, people are not going to lend it. And then halacha, the final halacha of this chapter, halacha above, you may not separate trumas or maasros. That you already separated from yesterday, you can bring it to the kohen on Yom Tov. And there's no need to say that the challah or the zeroya, the l'chaim, and the keva, that you can take it to the kohen on Yom Tov. Another than the gabay tzedakah, goyvin menachatzeres b'Yom Tov. But they should make a shinoi. And they should put it not in the normal containers, but but there's no better time to collect food on Yom Tov because everyone has so much food. Moving on to today's second chapter, Perek Chamishi of Hilchos Shvisas Yom Tov, is about articles being carried on Yom Tov. Very good. And this chapter has 20 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph. Sagt der Rambam, afal pishu hutra choitza b'Yom Tov. Afilu shaloi l'tzoydech, like the two malachas that the Rambam says could be done. Afilu shaloi l'tzoydech was havara, as we spoke in the previous chapter, not to kindle the fire, which is asam midrabanan, but to pass fire, to light from a pre-existing fire, and carrying. Nevertheless, there are also restrictions. Now, what will be a shinoi? Kate said, you're carrying jugs of wine. Basket and containers was the normal way to transport wine. Don't do that. Put it on your shoulder or hold it in your hands in front of you. You're carrying straw or hay, which was the way they would carry the hay, but hold it in front of you. Any type of load that you carry with a pole. Okay, a pole would mean shoulder to shoulder on your side. Put the pole on your back. Put it in front of you. Make a shinoi. Or yafresh olav beged. At least cover it. Why? At least is mishinoi amasa. But all of the shinoi is needed if you could. If you cannot, then you are allowed to carry. That we allow you a yakir, even, and if you can't make a shinoi, carry it. But al gaba behema lo yavi klal. That's called, you're making Yom Tov like a weekday. Halacha Gimel. You're not allowed to direct an animal with a staff. A blind person cannot go out with this makal. I want you to know that we're speaking only about the makal that a suma needs to walk. If a person, God forbid, has a limp, has a broken bone, and they go out with a stick, that's allowed. Okay? Or
so how should a blind man walk?
What was that?
So how should a blind man walk if he can't feel his way?
He shouldn't walk with you. Walk him. All of that is it's a shinoi, and it's not. It looks like a yomtiv. And a person should not be carried on a kisei, whether it's a man or a woman. All of this is called uvda d'chol. Guys, uvda d'chol is probably one of the hardest things for me to define. When do you say uvda d'chol? Here, Chazal give the cases. However, what's the exception? And this guy has to give a shear, and he cannot walk. The only way to get him is to carry him on a chair. So then, all right, because he's needed, we make an exception. So if you remember by Hilchos Shabbos, very large ladders are called part of the building. They're muksa even on Shabbos. Speaking about a ladder that's a little ladder that's used for the shayvach, so you cannot carry Rishus Harabim. Why? Because Shema Yoimru L'Saken Gaga Yom Alichai. Ava B'Rishus Hayachid Melichai. Then you're not even allowed to do b'chadrei chadarim, so you should not be allowed b'rishus hayachid. Answer is kanetiru v'pnei simchas yom. Halacha mi shoyeloi peres al gagoy. You left produce to dry on your roof, and you have to move them from one place to the other. Why is that? Yakir, it's about to rain. Mashal lo yeshitim igag l'gag. Afila begagan that are on the same height. Why? All of that is uvda d'chol. What could you do? You can throw it down through the aperture. That's not uvda d'chol. Now you have to carry the meat into this. Yes, uvda d'chol. Yes. Uvda d'chol is resolved with a shinoi. Yes. Don't bring it b'moit la'ir, which is the way they would normally carry. Carry its meat limb by limb. That's not the way they normally would do it. Another big chiddush. We're talking about carry. Now, guys, if something is not Yom Tov related, the example that Rambam will give is amazing. Can I carry to you a pair of tefillin on Yom Tov? So the Rambam writes, yes, because what I'm carrying, Yakir, does not need to be something that will be benefited from on Yom Tov, but it has to be something that during the week it could be benefited the way it is. If what I'm bringing is not usable yet, and in order to make it beneficial, you have to do a malacha in it, which cannot be done on Yom Tov, that is something that I cannot carry. That's the word. Even though you don't use it on Yom Tov, like tefillin, you are allowed to send it to your friend on Yom Tov. No need to say anything that could be used on Yom Tov, like wines and oils and slasois. But what can you not do? Forget about Yom Tov. You're not using it today. But even to use it in the weekday, you can't use it the way it is. What must you do? You have to do a maisa that is a malacha. Then ain't mishalchanoisim the Yom Tov.
All right, what happened to the? Sorry, what happened to the? What happened to the tefillin being muksa?
That's a good kasha. And why do you say tefillin is muksa? Because you're not allowed to wear them, but they bring a certain amount of protection. But obviously, the Rambam holds that not only can you move them, you can send them to your friend. Ketzad ein mishalchen b'yom tov tvua. Why? Because forget about tvua. What am I doing with tvua? You have to do many malachas, and these malachas. Don't forget we said l'tzorech harchol nefesh is only milisha ve'el, but to take off the klipa and then to winnow it and then to do boider, none of that can be done on Yom Tov. So and the guy is not going to eat the tvua. So lefisha ein yoysim by b'chol elam kein tachan. You just that step. You have to make it into flour, and vasalit chamayant. But you could send kitniyos The kidneys have to be cooked. Yeah, because you can cook on Yom Tov. Or you can roast the kidney. Living animals, because they're mutar l'shchet b'Yom Tov. When you send your friend a gift, now let's learn a little bit about culture that we have to get. We don't have some cultures. Yiddish culture. They're sending a gift, and then they're sending a gift b'shura, like Yaakov sent to Esau. And that's already not something that you can do on Yom Tov. What does it mean? They would send the same item with 3 different people or more. Each one would bring the same item. That's mamash chashuv. That don't do on Yom Tov. Lo yishalchenu b'shura. The ein shura b'chusav mishloisha b'nei Adam. And these shloisha b'nei Adam, each one is carrying wine. If I'm sending you wine, flour, and oil, and I'm sending it 3 people, even though I'm sending up one after the other, that's not called shura. Shura is when I send the gift in a way where the recipient says, oh my God, same item. Do it once to your wife. See if it works. Same item. Send her flowers, and then send her flowers, and then she'll be choishish that you did. Who know what did you do? Oh my God. Ketzad. Because that's called over the chol. I never did this in my life, so I want to know if for me it's called over the chol. But shilach shloisha minim. It's 3 different gifts. That's not a problem. And it's about also they would walk in a line, one after the other. So it's not that when the first person gave you the gift, you didn't know a second one is coming. The recipient is seeing what's happening. Yakir is smiling. You want to get a client moving to business, maybe that's the way you do it. Weiter. Okay, halacha test. Here we go. Next topic. Now this is a very important klal. And guys, we just came off Hilchos Eruvin, so we're not going to have the time, nor do we have the need, hopefully, to review all of the dinim. But let's not forget that everyone can have their own tchum, right? Because everyone in the same city who did not make an Eruv will share the same tchum of the city. But Yakir, if I made an Eruv 1,000 amas to the right of the city, and you made an Eruv 1,000 amas to the left of the city, we're going to have different tchumim. Now, tchum doesn't only affect where I can walk, not violating the rabbinic 2,000 amas. Everything that belongs to me is bound to my tchum. That's going to be very significant. The hemtoy, the kelev, or pedoisav are limited to his or her tchum. The ein malichin oisan elevatoichal paim amalachol roch, from the place where this guy, with this owner left the eruv. Now let's go. Now what? Chefzi hefkin. So we say harem keragdim yishuzachabayim. What about chefzi kutim? That's different. Which means that if I, for some reason, are in possession now of something that belonged to the kuti when Yom Tov came in, I need to know, Yakir, where was the item when Yom Tov came in? Obviously, if it wasn't the city, so then, it's the item of the city. But if this item was 1,000 amas to the Mizrach, then I won't be able to take it 2,000 amas to the Maidet. I have to know that. Where Yom Tov came in, and therefore we don't, and by the way, that will be the same din of Ba'alam Yisrael. It's another din. If I, God forbid, b'mezid yakir, if I went beyond my tchum, b'mezid, even if I came back, I gotta keep Shabbos in the 4 amas. If I did it ba'oinus, then I go back to my original. Items always are ba'oinus because it's not walking. My food, my things are not walking on their own. Someone walked it. So if they came back, it's okay. Halacha Yudal. Hamoisebem to lebnoi, harikaragli ha'av. Masara leroya, bafilin osana b'yamtiv. Listen to this, guys. Harikaragli ha'roya. How crazy is that? Because when Yom Tov came in, my mind was that I'm going to be giving over this animals to that shepherd. So it's ke'ilu, it belonged to the shepherd when Yom Tov came in. The tchum of the shepherd. If I gave it to 2 shepherds, harehi keragla be'oleo, The concept of me giving it over to two means I'm giving it to none. None of them acquired it. So it goes back to where was the owner when Yom Tov came in? Allah Yud Beis. Now let's get even better. You invite guests on Yom Tov. The meaning of some guests is not only to eat in your house, but they take food with them. And I'll tell you more. The real culture is you give them food. The fact that they also take food when you're not looking, that's on them. That's a minig of certain cultures, but not Jewish culture. But here, my minig is you give them food. Now, here's the issue, Yakir. If I give you food, you have to remember that. In other words, it could be that you the oirech, you placed a tchum, you placed an eruv somewhere. But since we said my food, my animals, the balabas are limited to the place of the balabas, when I give you a gift, you have to remember, let's say that you live 3,000 amos away. The only reason you were able to come to my house is because before Yom Tov, you placed the eruv tchumen. But it didn't go for the food that I'm gifting you. So the oirech who's getting food has to chap that. It's when I have a roy in the city, it's different. I had in mind that I'm giving my animal to a shepherd. There we say that the animal from the beginning follows the tchum of the shepherd. Huge. If I have guests, I didn't give it over to the guests before Yom Tov. It remains mine. Elim Kain, in other words, if I'm a real good host, and I know that these people are only coming to me because they made an eid of tchumen, and I want to be able to give them the box of chocolate for them to take to their homes, then before Yom Tov, I have to have someone else be zoichet for them. It should belong to them. So now it's going to be like them. Halacha Yud Gimel. We don't practice it this much because maybe Yidden that they go to the Catskills for a summer, they have mamash. Saying here in LA, saying for the Fruma people, we're not bound by the tchum because we spend Shabbos in the city. But when you spend Shabbos out there, things can change. Okay, I don't know how it is now. When I went to Camp, the one summer, I think I went to Camp Gan Yisrael over there in New York, and there was Neville, the Rubashkins. We made an eruv. We made an eruv to be able to walk there. It was mamish 3 kilometers or 4 kilometers. I remember it was a place where without an eruv you can't go. There it's not shaykh to carry no one, but I'm saying for Yom Tov, you can carry on Yom Tov. So if someone would go there, you can't, and they would give you food, you can't take it all the way back. If I had my food in another city, they cannot bring his paytas. Why? Because sheperoisav kamoyu doesn't belong to the hand of the custodian; it belongs to the owner. Ironically, if there's a kenem zavias, it makes it belong more to the owner. It's keilu, the custodian also rented that location. So then it's more of the custodians. We're speaking about limits of water, even better, because water is a need. So water, you can ugly ba'alav. And if the cistern, if the spit, if the swell belongs to a city, keragli anshi oisoir. However, if you remember, they made highways to facilitate aliyas regal, and they would make water cisterns. Remember the whole pasi berois. Who does that water belong to? To all of the Yidden that are going up, which is great. It's like hefker. Whoever gets it, that water can go wherever they can go. Anywhere where you can go, that water can go. It's almost like it was hefker. In other words, just because the mouth of the mayan is coming out of my field, it's not my water. And therefore the tchumen, it's not bound to mine. Whoever takes that water can go wherever they can go, that water can go. No problem. Because whenever you get it, that's where it begins. The ox belonging to a roya, karagli anshe oiso ha'ir. This is quite unique. We're speaking about a roya that is raising oxen for slaughter. But who does he think he's going to slaughter it for, Yakir? For people in that city. So karagli anshe ha'ir. But what happens if you have real professionals? Think about that. You have a patam. You have someone who doesn't just herd the animals, someone who knows how to make the animals fat l'shchita. And these are people from the surrounding cities come together. We're speaking about cities that without a tchum, they can't come. But someone is allowed to make a tchum and come in and buy from the patam and take it back because the patam had in mind to sell it to anyone out from the world. V'shal patam kerag l'mishalak l'shachta b'yantiv. V'pnei shedas ba'olav was l'machrei la'anoshim acherim, even to people outside the city, like people in business today. The whole world changed. You're making a product for anyone, for everyone, because you're a mafutim. You know that everyone knows how great you are. You know people are coming from outside the tchum. How are they coming? Because they made a native tchumen. But that was your kavanah. Another thing. Im shachte ba'olav b'yamtiv v'machab saleh. Because the patam also knows that his meat is special and people are going to be coming from outside the tchum. That what? Beautiful. Okay. Now, what about a gachelis? Now, here's the thing. There's a kol yakir and then there's the fire. The fire is not mamash's dik, so therefore the fire, if you came from outside your tchum and you took fire from my fire, you can walk it back. The fire was mine. Fire is not mamash's. The kolya. So shalheves keragle be'olav or keragle shoyalo. But the shalheves, since there's no mamash's, so it's not bound by a tchum. Keragle mishemiyodoi. Lefika chamadlik neroi eitz mechavedo. You have no problem. Shoyel, you borrowed my utensil. You borrowed it before means we agreed. I only gave it to you on Yantiv. It belongs to the borrower, which is great. But if you borrowed it to me only on Yantiv, that means when Yantiv came in, I didn't know you're gonna ask it from me. So when Yantiv came in, who was it? Mine. If it's mine, it's bound to my tchum. Every time that person borrows this utensil, it still is bound to the tchum of the owner, of the lender. Now, if they said so, if they said, no, I'm lending this to you, that's different. Shnaim, that they borrowed one shirt. How does it work? One of them is going to use a chachris, other one is going to use arvis. So this is going to be something that we'll have throughout until the end of the chapter. And maybe Kevin will find a picture. I know that in the Evan Yisrael, beautiful Rambam that we're using here, there's a picture. In other words, guys, just make believe you're in the center, Yakir. This is the city here, and someone is living in this city, someone is living in that city. The two outer ones made an 8 of Tchumen. But don't forget, when you make an 8 of Tchumen, you can only walk 2,000 amas to each side. So even though if I'm in the right and I put my 8 of to the left, I can walk more to my left, but I can walk less to my right. Same thing in the other direction. What will happen is if you have two people that made 8 of Tchumen, since this belonged to two people, you're going to limit where it can go. It can only go where both of them can go. And it's shayach if they live so far apart that this shirt cannot go anywhere. Because if you move it a drop to the left, it's going beyond the 2,000 amos of the right. If you move it a drop to the right, that's gedak shneim. Ketzad. One was 1,000 amos. 1,000 amos means at least that kid that even though he's gaining 1,000 amos on one side, he lost 1,000 amos on the other side, but he still has 1,000 amos. So because the other guy who has a partnership in it cannot go more than that. Similarly, why? Each one was exactly 2,000 amos away. Means each one was allowed to walk up until the shirt, but they cannot walk 1 amma more. And so they both get to use a shirt. Each one like a goylem gets there. He puts on the shirt. He stands where he is. And then he gives it to the other guy. Final halacha chaf. It's gavaldik. So what did we say if I borrow something? Guys, if I borrow something from you, this is so common. Imagine Yakir, we are far away. I made an aid of tchumen to be able to go to you. But you cannot go back to me. If I took your water and your salt, me the genius, and I put it into my bread, I got a problem because some of the bread is bound to my tchum, the flour. Some of it belongs to you. So the bread can only be transported where we're both allowed to work. Here you have a picture on the Zoom. Thank you. So then Tafshil is bound only Kerag. Another example, if two people made a partnership in an animal and they shechted it on Yontif, even though everyone is taking their part, now 1 second. Now let me say like this, that if you remember, and this is something that we're going to learn throughout, the question of Yesh Breira or Ein Breira, we paskin that by Dinai Derabanan, which Tchumen is Midrabanan, we're speaking about the 2000 Amat Tchum, we say Yesh Breira. If Yesh Breira, why don't we say that if we shecht an animal, the part that I ended up taking was always mine, should only be bound to my tchum, which is good for me. The part that you take retroactively was always yours. And actually, we will say Bereid on the next case, that if they bought a chavias b'shutvis, we bought a barrel of wine, yakir, and they divided on Yom Tiv, we do say that everyone can take their chelik, and I'm not stuck to your eruv. I'm only bound to my eruv. Why? Because we say by derabanans, bereida. So why don't we say bereida by need? And the answer is, and we learned something about it, because when the animal is living, even though the half that I took was always mine, but while the animal was alive, and when Yom Tov came in, it was alive, there's no such a thing as a half a living animal. The animal is alive because every part is yearning from the other part. So by a behema, we're all bound together. You can't do that. The question is why? Answers the Rambam. First of all, Tchumen is midivrei sofer, and we paskin by the Rabbanan's retroactive clarification. Yesh b'reida b'hem, and therefore the nachshev it's considered halachli keilu chelik shegiel azeh was already theirs man of Yom Tov, and it wasn't even mixed. Why don't we say the same thing by an animal? That what shechelik zeh shegioi afilu nachshev taka. Let's say that you only own that half. Nevertheless, you own the living half. How is it alive? Because it was yonik. That means a chassid can never be disconnected from a rebbe. Because that's the way it works. My neshama is yonik from the neshama of the tzaddik. There's no way you can't do abereda. The names are called Eber ve'Eber mo'oyre mechalke mechalke nebach on the rebbe. But how lucky are we? Lefika chein keragle shneihem ganeden mamash. All right, the final chapter that we're learning today, the 6th chapter of Hilchai Shvisas Yom Tiv, is all about Eruvei Tafshilin. All right, hopefully many of us are more familiar with this because we actually really practice this very often as we're learning this Tafshin Pei Gimel, right? The first days of Pesach is the days for which we made an Eid of Tafshilin. And Baruch Hashem here in the shul, like it happens always, some people forgot to make it. We're going to learn about people making it for others and how an announcement should be made. We're going to learn about before they made the calendar, when it was Taka Safik by Yom Tov Sheni, forgetting to make the Eid of Tashilin was something that was rectifiable. You would make it on the first day. We're speaking about when there's 2 days of Yom Tov before Shabbos, like Pesach this year, because then only 1 day is really Yom Tov. So you make them a man of shach, and how we paskin, like the Rambam already brings down, that after we made the calendar, you can't do it anymore. Because we're not doing it because it's a Safik. Now it's a 2 days Yom Tov. If you forgot, you have to rely on someone that made it for the whole city. And if you don't have that, there's another solution that we'll learn inside. And we will also have more about Oineg and Simchas Yom Tov in this chapter. L'chaim. Perek Shishi has 24 halachas. Halacha Aleph. Yom Tov Shechal Li is Erev Shabbos. This is the yisoid of everything. Yom Tov on Erev Shabbos ein oifen. You may not bake, you may not cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos. Why not? Why not? You're not cooking from Yom Tov to the weekday. You're cooking for Yom Tov for Shabbos. Don't forget, on Shabbos you can't cook. What's wrong? And Shabbos is holier than Yom Tov. The Isur Zeh is midivrei sofer. The Rambam was paskening that really, essentially, be'emes, cooking, baking from Yom Tov to Shabbos Yakir is good, but you cannot cook from Yom Tov to the weekday. If you would be allowed to cook Friday for Shabbos, then we would come out that you'll get used to cooking on Yom Tov for the next day, even if it's not Shabbos. That's already awesome. And how does it help? Because now a person will make a kal v'chomer. I can't even cook for Shabbos. Sure, I can't cook for the weekday. What did you want to say? Lefikach, that's very important. So what's the solution? So the whole thing is only for you not to end up using Yom Tov for the weekday. So since the whole Isur from Yom Tov to Shabbos is not an Isur doirais, it's a Gzeira, there's more room for the Chacham to say, okay, make another heket. We just want for people to know you can't cook Yom Tov l'choil. How do you remind people that if you began the cooking, you began the baking, you began the preparing Erev Yom Tov for Shabbos, what you're doing on Yom Tov is only a continuation of, that's enough of a reminder. No, without that, you can't cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos. And Kal v'chomer l'choil, lefikach hamasa tafshel Erev Yom Tov, began our by the way, we paskin, that we need both a tafshel and we use something that was baked and cooked. The Rambam doesn't hold that way. One item. She made one tafshel Erev Yom Tov. Sheyeh soy mechalav umevashel ve'oife ve'Yom Tov l'Shabbos harei mutar. And this tafshel that you are relying on is called a eruv tafshilin. Why is it called eruv? Says the Rambam Malacha Beis V'lama Nikra Shema eruv because shekashem sheho eruv she'oisim b'chatzedes, just like the eruv chatzedes, or mavois, which is made be'erev Shabbos, is made mishum heked, as we learned in eruv. What's the heked? Kedei shelayala datam shemut loitzim l'shus b'Shabbos. Even though midaraisa, I can carry from one rishus hayachar to another rishus hayachar. But the Chachamim were afraid, but I might end up carrying from Rishus HaYachar to Rishus HaRabbi. So even the Rishus HaYachar Gufa, if it belongs to different owners, you have to make an Eruv. Kach Zeh Tafshil is because of a Heked V'Zikaron. Shelo Yidamu Shviyach Shemut Lefes B'Yom Tov. Why you're not eating that day if it's L'choil. So that's why it's called an Eruv Tafshilin. No, it's not that you're mixing. The Rambam is saying it's not like the Eruv means that what I'm cooking on Yom Tov is mu'urev with what I cooked before. That would be one way of understanding it as mu'urev, no, Eruv as a heket. It's a reminder. And the word Eruv doesn't mean a reminder. By Eruv Chatzeres, it serves as a reminder. It should serve as a reminder. Gedenk, never cook from Yom Tov to the weekday. That's the Eruv Tafshilin. Halacha Yom. Eruv Tafshilin, Sheyurei and Parkas Mekazayis. But you don't need it for every single person. Bein la'echad, bein la'alofim. Means when one person is mezaka l'chol b'nei ha'ir, and an in Los Angeles, can I know you have a million yirbu? Good, very good. One kazayis is enough. The ein oisen eruv zeh. The Rambam says you cannot use bread. Look, you cannot use rifois, cereal, the chayoytze boy, ela betafshil, which is used as a parperes. Parperes means something that's used as a spread to be eaten with bread, even if the spread is insignificant. What? Guys, people did not eat meat the way we eat meat. Meat was eaten with the bread, like basar or dagim or beitzim chayotzim boy. And the Rambam says, I'll tell you more. Even adashim, that was very inexpensive. Shebishlu kedeira. And more, the Rambam says. You want to know how insignificant? Even the shamnunis that's on the knife that you're cutting, something that's roasted, if you have enough of a kazayis. Gordoi, if there is a kazayis, you should be fired for having a dirty kitchen today. Imagine if you can take a kazayis off your knife. I don't know how that's how it worked. Wow, how lucky are we when they get hygiene? Cannot imagine that you always learn in halacha about shamnunius of the knife and then doichak asakin. Today you're looking with the light though, you can't find shamnunius. It's clean. You have the Brillo, you have your cleaning agents. They didn't have it then. Halacha dal. Tafshel she'amru linyan eruv zeh. Again, even though we are using the word tafshel, what does tafshel mean, guys? Cooked. The Rambam says Yeah, you can't use bread or cereal, but it doesn't have to be tafshel. What happens if it was roasted? What happens if it was stewed? I'll tell you more. What happens if it was kavush? Kavush means pickled. Can you imagine? What happens if it was smoked? It's all okay. It doesn't have to be cooked. And afilu dagim ketanim, that they are only rinsed with hot water. And that is the way you cook it. They were barely cooked. Oichet good. Now, this Eidov has to be accessible. That was all the din we learned. It has to be accessible. So if you put your Eidov in a place where it's not accessible, you got a problem. If it was eaten up, you got a problem. That's ideal. So everything is ready. And also the yachin, chamin, kol shul tzarech. 3 things: baking, cooking, heating up water. If it was lost before you began, of course, you can cook, bake, warm up water from Yom Tov to that Yom Tov. Yeah, but you can't do it for Shabbos. What happens if it's in the middle? B'di'evet. You at least began b'isasa. You began b'tavshiloi. Began. The Rambam says, not roiv. You began. The nechal ho'edav v'yavad. Now post facto harei goymer. Allah chavav. Maniach edav tavshilin. Kedei she'yismach aleim. Hu va'achedim, which is great. I want to be of service to the greater community. That intent in itself does not do anything. You have to actually have someone who will acquire it for all. People have to own it. And they don't have to know about it, but it has to be done for them. And we had this already, all the details. You have to know Yakir, who's able to do it. Is qualified enough. I'll give you an example which is practical. Banav haktanim. Banav haktanim are not independent enough to be someone else who will acquire it from me for everyone, which is what happens when people are younger families. You want to do it, you want to make a kinyan, you have to get someone that's banav hagdoilam. Even if they're soymech al shulchana, you're good. They have to be over by mitzvah. Just one example. You don't have to even notify the people. They don't have to know before Yom Tov. They don't have to know before Yom Tov, Yakir, but they have to know on Yom Tov. Not how would they know? They have to know and only then, and even though they only found out on Yom Tiv, it's mutter. Now the question is, what about nowadays? Nowadays, when we formulated in the Siddur, everyone is being mezaka for everyone. I wonder whether then it was optional. So if you wouldn't find out, you can't use it. Like today, if someone forgot to make it, so what's the din? Do they have to go and shul and ask, did you make an Eidov the way it's written in the Siddur, which means you included them? Or can they say, from the tens of thousands of Truma Yidden over here, for sure, one did it? I don't know. You could. Anyways, everyone can do it for the whole city. But one thing is important. You know when I can do it? I can only do it for people that are in my tchum. So I cannot do it for the whole world. Or at least b'seichat tchum. Sure, it's in our tchum. Yeah. Ulamacha machres v'omer kol mi shelo yinech eruv tavshilin yismay chaleruvi. Halacha ches hamaniach eruv tavshilin chayiv levarech. Because it's a mitzvah midrabanan for which we make brachas. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Asher kedushanim mitzvaysav v'tzivanu. And the Rambam already said the word v'tzivanu means that you commanded me to listen to the sages. And the sages says al mitzvah seiruv. And then you have to say the eruv zeh. You tell li if you're selfish, if you only made it for yourself. Lefwais ulabashal meyamtiv shalamachar l'shabbos. The im zachabayilach. Now the word shalamachar is we're speaking about one day yamtiv. Okay. The im zachabayilach yomer li ulapleni v'ulapleni. If you did it also for the whole anshe ir kulam, so you say la anshe ir kulam lefwais ulabashal meyamtiv l'shabbos. I just want to make a comment that the Rambam divided 3 things. To bake, to cook, and to warm up water. Fine. In the formulated text, you don't mention warming up water. Now I know warming up water is cooking, Stop. That there, the Rambam divided it, and here in the Nusach, you don't mention that. Halacha 9. If you didn't do it, no one did it in your city. So you should know a very important din. Now, guys, other people did it for themselves. So let's say Yakir, let's say you made it and I forgot to make it. So one would think, I forgot to make it. You're going to come into my house and you're going to prepare my food for me. No, I can gift you my food. And if you'll gift it back, that we'll see in a moment. But in other words, it's not on the Gavra. Since I didn't make it, I cannot cook. No, since it's my food cannot be cooked. Therefore, even though you made it for you, you cannot come into my house and help me by making my food for me. Now, that's different. And we already learned, right, in the previous chapter, that a kinyan can be made on Yom Tov, right? We can't make a kinyan kederach mekach or memkar shelo yichtov. But here I can do that. In other words, if you come into my house, I take all my food to you, and I give it to you with a kinyan, a real kinyan. Now all of my raw material is yours. Once it's yours, I can even take it to my house and cook it. But don't forget, if I'm cooking it and making it, whose food is it? Yours. Hopefully you'll gift it to me. Meshicha, if you are outside my domain, you have to know if I'm giving it to you and you are in my house, you have to do akbar. We learn, okay, but we'll learn this. Very good. I don't know if people are pointing back, people are pointing forward, but we learn Rambam. Okay, good. Now, now example, if you want, yitain achar kach lezeh shleniach matana. The way that Rambam words it. Notice if Avram forgot, Yakir remembered, I have to gift you my raw material. Now, if it's yours, I can bake it, but it's not mine. If Yakir wants, you can gift it back to me. And if not, Yakir will have a lot of food.
If you're outside the Tchum and no one, you didn't make the Eruv Tafshilin, what's your solution?
In other words, very good. Eruv Tafshilin can only be made, if I'm making it for others, it has to be for others that are in my Tchum. Very good. So let's say, again, today, everyone makes it for everyone. But let's go by the Rambam it was not formulated in the Nusach. So people could have done it. If it was not done, you don't have an Eruv. So one option is if someone else made an Eruv for them, that's solution number one. Gift it to them, make the food, and hopefully they'll gift it back to you. But you have to make a real kinyan both times.
But let's say there's no one in your Tchum and you can't carry it because they're outside.
Then I can't. I'm stuck.
You're stuck then, right? Okay.
Yeah. No, you're outside the Tchum. You can have food that doesn't have to be baked or cooked. You can have an onion. Okay? Halacha Yud, Karpas. Now, here again, Kevan. A guy didn't do it, and he did everything okay. He knew he cannot cook for Shabbos, but you know what? He cooked for Yom Tov. Be'emes, you can't do tricks here. Cooked for Yom Tov, and there's leftover that you could have. Harama you can't do. You know, you cooked a lot because you actually invited guests. And they didn't come. Now you're good. But the im had him here, we don't allow you to make this type of ruse. Now hold on, I'll tell you even more than that. If a person b'mezid cooked for Shabbos, after he did it, he can eat it. Now you look at the irony. If I made a harama, I can't eat it. Harama here is worse. No. It's a isur d'Rabbanan. It's a isur d'Rabbanan. Guys, don't forget, cooking from Yom Tov to Shabbos biblically is allowed. You're not allowed to cook from Yom Tov to the weekday. The Chachamim says that without making an eruv, people will mistakenly make for the weekday. Now, why are we more machmir by the harama? Because she'im tata lamarim, everyone will do harama. No one will make an eruv tafshilin. The whole eruv tafshilin will be forgotten. Mezid is not matzui. That's what the Rambam, in the Rambam's world, the Mezid is not Motzei. You're not going to do it again. This is not the only place, but this is really exceptional. That a Mezid is better because you're owning it. Halacha Yud Aleph. Shnei Yomim Toivim. Now let's go to 2 days Yom Tov. We're here, but this is the norm. Shechol Aliyas b'Chamishi v'Erev Shabbos. Same idea, but you have to make the Eruv on Wednesday and Erev Yom Tov, Erev the first day. Oisa Eruv Tashil Miyom Revi, Shu Erev Yom Tov. Now, guys, what we're learning now is before we made the calendar. Don't get excited. Many people think we can do this. No, you can't do this nowadays, but then they can do it. What happens if you forgot and you didn't do it? Now you have a simple solution. You make it on Thursday, and you make the following stipulation. I can say it first by heart. It's simple, Yakir, right? Because on Thursday, it's really only one day. If Thursday is Yom Tov, what does it mean? That Friday is only Chol HaMoed. That means I'm allowed to, I don't need an Erev Tafshilim B'chlal. You're not making food from Thursday to Shabbos. You're making food from Friday to Shabbos. So you say Thursday, if today is Yom Tov and tomorrow is a weekday, what I'm doing now is not needed. If today is not Yom Tov, what is today? Erev Yom Tov. On Erev Yom Tov, you can make an Erev Tafshilim. Maniach Erev Tafshilim. Yom Chamivayim. Ima Yom Yom Tov Amachar Chayil. Well, I don't need anything. Avashul v'oifel Shabbos v'enis arachum. Now ve'im hayoyim chol l'machar Yom Tov. Perfect. Ve'eruv zeh. Yutan li. Today you would add for the whole city also. Le'efais u'lavashul l'machar Yom Tov rishon. Another similar application of the fact that Yom Tov Sheni then was mamash safei. And you have 2 baskets of tevel, and we learned that midrabanan you may not tithe on Yom Tov. But here is a solution. So then I can separate. So then tiazu trumalzu. The one of the right is truma for the one on the left. If today is kodesh, what I'm saying now is nothing. And then he says to the one on the right, you're truma. Even though it's nothing if today is Yom Tov. Tomorrow, second day Yom Tov, you make the same statement on the same basket. The one of the right is truma. Then what I'm saying now is nothing. If today is a weekday, then tiazu trumalzu. Make sure it's on the same one. You have to do it on the same one. And you can eat the second one. Because it's either choil or weekday. Says that Rambam, this solution is only good. Only First of all, but the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, what did we learn? It's Kedusha Achas. So what do you do, Kevin? So if there are other people in the city, or like we said, you're makna kimchoy, you gift with a kinyan your raw material, or you can't. Or years are also left a lot of Shabbos. Same thing. The 2 kalkolois, but it's Rosh Hashanah. Furthermore, says that that other than Rosh Hashanah, you can make such a stipulation is only bisman based in Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, the Bnei Goyla who made 2 days, Taka had a doubt. They did not know which day is the only one day that we're Mekadosh in Eretz Yisrael. But nowadays, that even Bnei Eretz Yisrael are somchin on the calendar that was made by Hillel the Minor. That's made based on the Cheshbon Umekachin Oisoi. In Yom Tov Sheni Listalik Menasofik, it's only a minute. And therefore, the Rambam says, Ani Oimer, She'ein Mo'arav Adam U'maslam Izman, that this type of stipulation can no longer be made. Not by Yeruvi Tafshilin, or not by Yeruvi Chatzeros that we learned in Eruvin, and not by Shutofi Muvois, and not to be Ma'asad Tevel Al Pnai, either on Erev Yom Tov or not. My friends, we're moving on to a new topic. Like we mentioned in the intro, we're going to have a lot about the Oinig, and we're going to have about the Simcha. Halacha Tezayin. There's a mitzvah of kibbut and a mitzvah of Oinig. Because since it says, and this is the pasuk in Yeshayahu, L'kedosh Hashem mechuba, to the sanctified upon God and honored, the word kedosh, even though the pasuk speaks about Meshabbos, but the kedosh includes days of kedusha, which is Yom Tov. V'chol Yom Tovim never mikra kodesh, kodesh, kodesh. how do we externalize kavod and oinig looking al Shabbos? Same thing on Yom Tov. Don't have a proper meal. Ket of Shabbos, because part of that is Bechal Kibbutz. So when people today, when they have the Bain, they call it the Bain, not only are they eating Be'isur because you can't eat Bein Hashmashas before Kiddush, but entering Shabbos or Yom Tov satisfied in itself is against the covenant. Now, what's the opposite of honoring? Dishonoring, right? It's a dishonor. Whoever dishonors the holidays is as if they are associated with idol worship. Wow. Halacha Yudzai. Shiva Simei Pesach. Shmoyne Simei Chag. This is in the Holy Land. Im Shari Yomim Tovim. Kula Masurim Behesped V'Tainis. You may not eulogize, you may not fast on these days. In other words, V'chayiv, what's the opposite of not mourning? Of being bejoyed, right? Sad, heartbroken, filled with joy. V'chayiv Adam Lias Behem Samech V'Tov Leivov. Not only he and his children and his wife, Ubenei Banav and his grandchildren, V'chol Hanilvim Olav, all of the people that depend on him. Because we are contagious. So if a person is joyful, it's going to spread. And God forbid, and the opposite. The pasuk that we're quoting is really only narrow about Karban Shlamim, as we will explain in Al-Chas Chagiga, Nevertheless, Yesh Bechlal Loisa Simcha, Pashat Simcha, L'Smayach Hu Ubanav Beisoy, and everyone according to what they need, whatever brings you joy. And generally, Halacha Yudches Keitzat Tanim, how do they get joy? Noisen Lehem Kaloyas V'Goysim Amigdanis, roasted seeds, nuts, and sweets. Things, toys, nash, nashim, begadim, tachshitin, noim, kifim according to what he can afford. Because if you buy what you cannot afford, she'll be happy, you won't. No, it's not to make other people happy by making you sad. Ha'anashim, by eating meat and drinking wine. No, I'm asking you, who? The joke is on whom? I don't know. What brings people joy? A piece of meat, like feh. But yeah, that's the way we were made. She'ein simcha el babasa. Ve'ein simcha el bayayin. She'oichel v'shoyse. Now, when you're eating and drinking, chayiv lahachal, lagei, layosef, v'lalmana. Im she'or ho'aniyim ho'amleil. Aval mishanol daslis chatzed. If you lock the gates, and you eat and drink, just you and your wife and your kids. You and your kids and your wife. That's the Seder. You're not sharing your food with other people that are afflicted. That's not called a mitzvah. That's called the rejoicing of your gut, the rejoicing of your belly. And on these people, it says, on the Rambam was quoting a pasuk in Hosea, that zivchayim, that their sacrifices is kilechem oinin lahem. They're eating the breads of mourners, and whoever eats it becomes tamei. Because their bread was selfishly kept for themselves alone. Ki lachmam linafsham. And this simcha kolin hilahem. It's a joy, it's a disgrace for them. Wow. Sheneman, as it says, viziresi perish al panechem. I'm going to smear excrement on your face. From what? Perish chagechem. The excrement of your festivals? Yeah. When your festivals are only for you, it's soya. Halacha yutes. Afa pishachilo shisiyam b'miyatis. Is included in a mitzvah saseh. So here also a person will think, I'm doing a mitzvah. You know, you do a mitzvah. The more the better. The more the better, right? Another piece of steak. Another piece of steak. Another piece of steak. No. I want you to know the word dat doesn't mean religion. Das means a practice. This is the practice. Wake up early. Mashkima means to wake up early. Waking up late in itself is the opposite of joy. It's laziness. It's a churban. Wake up early and daven and read in the Torah b'inayim. So let's say it gets light 6. You wake up Yom Tov, Shabbos, you daven at 6. Daven at 6:15. Go to the mikveh. So you're going to come home, right? Let's say 2.5 hours later. right? You're going to come home, go eat, not wine, eat. Eat whatever you eat. Then go back to the base medrash and go learn until midday. Midday doesn't mean 12 o'clock. Midday means 1, 2 o'clock. Then daven mincha. And then simchas yontif. That's the way as it should be. Halacha chav. Again, let's go even in the afternoon. Further moderation. You're eating and drinking, and you're rejoicing. Don't let yourself be overly drawn, right, by the wine. And by saying, because you should know that these things are good up until the moderate amount, and beyond that, it goes from good to bad. And you're playing with fire. And it's a fire that God wants us to play with. It's a mitzvah to drink wine. Yeah, but we have to get it. We're not children. Drink wine until a point. Sha'ashichrus and the schoik. Harbe, the kalus haroish b'chlal is not simcha. It's called frivolity, hoilulis. It's called sichlus. It's called narishkeit, foolishness. God did not command us to have this sichlus, hoilulis and sichlus. God commanded us to have simcha, which is avodas yoytzer hakoil. As it says, tachas asher lo yavad b'simcha b'leiv v'moreif koil. That there is an avoid, asher avoida is bisimcha. And the efsher la'avodas Hashem. Lo mitoich schoik, lo mitoich chalas haroish, lo mitoich shichrus. Halacha chafal. Hayovim based in lahama trade from Beragala. Based in is obligated to appoint officers that they should drezer shemasababin, and they will machapsin, and they should go into the gagois. They should go on the rooftops, and they should go into the orchards, and then they should go near the river banks, where the people, because there's another issue, that is that a mingling between the sexes, between the genders, when people are drinking, will lead to trouble.
Modesty police.
Huh?
Modesty police.
Here we go. So we have our Persian. The whole fasting of Bahab is because of this. But it's not sin and fast, it's because that's what happens. Even in your houses, they don't go into your house. They go out there. People should just be mindful that there is some type of freedom that you experience when you drink in moderation, and then that can lead you to something amazing, and it can lead you to something the opposite of amazing. Now we're moving on to the next topic. Yomim shebein Nishan v'Shvi shel Pesach, and the days in between Nishan and Shmini shel Chag HaSukkos. That's in the Holy Land. Or the Hein Bagoyla, the 4 days inside Pesach, right? Because we have 2 and 2. Or the 5 days in the Chag. Hey manikroim choyloi shel moyed. And by the way, they're also called moyed, which means that it's more moyed than choyl. Now, what does it mean? Drink some wine on chol hamoyed, basur and behesped v'tainis. Nevertheless, there's some leniencies that are given, which is, for example, umutar lispoit bahem talmud chacham only befanav. Avalach covered also l'sabta bahem. The ain't tzarach lema b'rashi chadashim. That what yakir that mutar befanav. V'chaniko b'purim shesoif tamid befanav. Even though these are days that are sort of have to do with tainis, but that's only befanav. What does befanav mean? Before burial. Avalach gvura also l'spoit bahem. Halach of gimel chava freilach. Right. Ein manichin mitas hameis v'ruchay b'moyed. Because when you put the bed down, people begin to talk. Ella, you go basically kivroi. The aim is ablim b'moyed. The chain aim koiden v'loy mevarin sudas havra cholzen as hakosed, which is something that they used to do. B'moyed alameis ella kareivav shim chayev l'sabalo. They do it. Imoy chacha my adam kasher oisha yo oimed olo b'shas tils neshama. Then yes, you do kriya even b'moyed, even though it's not your relative. That's the whole shaila nowadays. Why doesn't the doctor do kriya? Like there's a din that whenever you are with an adam kasher that passes away, they say because then no one, the doctors will not go into the room. How many garments do you have? Ein koydem b'yom tov sheni klal. Afilu Kareva Shalmes. Final halacha of this chapter, Nashim B'Moyed. And here we're going to learn, like we said, by hesped, the Hilchas Avil. Hesped isn't just the word eulogy. It's a very bad translation. A hesped is a whole experience. And there would be different types of lamenting. Women crying and clapping. People saying words, people repeating. We're going to have the words here. Nashim B'Moyed, but Fnemes, Ma'anois. We'll see soon what that means. The word Ma'anois in English is they can lament, but they cannot pound their hands. They cannot be Mekoinen. Nikbar Ameis, not even Ma'anois. But Rashi Chadashim Khan go put it like this. Befnei Ameis, Ma'anois umetapchois, avolay Mekoinanois. What's Inoi? When they lament in unison. What's Kino? When one says and everyone repeats. It's more dramatic. But also, guys, within Shloishin, people are already mourning Yakir. Someone else can speak about the mace. It's not going to add to grief. After Shloishin, there's a certain amount of easing off the mourning. And if someone then will make another hesped, it's going to bring the mourner for another 30 days in that saddened state. So don't do it 30 days before the regel. And really be doig v'choy v'zichran atzad. Elom, Yasser hadaygan l'liboy v'chaven datoy l'simcha. Amazing. To be continued. Wow.